Hello, YouTube. My name is Jared Komrowski. I'm the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and I have Kyle Potter, our editor-in-chief, with us today. And we're going to be answering all of your questions about, when will we be able to travel again? We're going to talk a little bit about what is kind of the current status of travel here domestically in the US. And then we're going to talk about, what are kind of some of the restrictions that we're seeing, changing from day to day abroad. And then we're going to open up to questions. Right away, you guys can throw your questions right into the comments section, and we'll get those and we'll grab those. We'll put those on the screen, and we'll answer them in a few minutes. So first up, before we dive into this, people will ask us on the daily, is now the right time to travel domestically? Is now the right time to travel internationally? And we're travel experts. We're going to give you all the news, but we are not public officials, government, doctors, anything like that. Listen to your local officials. When they say it's okay to travel, then you should travel. But we're going to give you all the information that we have at our disposal at thriftytraveler.com, as well as our COVID-19 channel at thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19. Other than that, I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, and we're just going to kind of go back and forth and just answer some of the questions of, when do you see domestic travel beginning? And then internationally. Kyle, why don't you start off?
Yeah, this is really a classic case of and some really, really big questions that we have about how this is all going to unfold. I think maybe the airline industry analyst put it a couple of weeks ago, a little bit less worse news is that domestic travel is starting to come back a little bit faster than airlines and travel industry experts first anticipated. The number of travelers moving throughout the United States is inching up basically every single day. It's up 60, 70, 80% compared to, this time last month. And that means airlines are starting to fly a little bit more. Delta has said it's going to add 100 to 200 flights back into its schedule over the course of the next few months. That means it's getting a little bit easier for, us here in America to move across the United States by plane over the next few months. Airlines really cut back to the bone, the flights that they were operating because people just weren't flying. And as that started to change, airlines are starting to add back some of these flights. So that's really the good news. And then you start looking at international travel. And, the good news there is that for the most part, some countries around the globe are starting to announce that they're going to accept international tourists much sooner than really anyone anticipated. The prime example right now is Iceland. Iceland has said it will welcome travelers from across the globe, including us here in the United States, beginning June 15th. So just in a couple of weeks here. And then you start looking at countries like Spain and Portugal. Both of these countries, Spain in particular, got absolutely hammered by coronavirus in March and February. And now Spain is saying that they may open up to international tourism as soon as July. The same goes for Italy, although, they may open initially just to, fellow European travelers and slowly kind of ramp back up. And, that gets to the biggest question that I think, everyone has, and the biggest question, especially for travelers like us based here in the USA, which is, are American travelers going to be allowed into some of these countries that, perhaps you had travel plans for this summer, next fall, even into next year? That is the biggest question. The coronavirus outbreak was very late hitting the United States compared to much of the rest of the globe. And now it's by far the worst. So in many cases, countries across the world are looking at the United States and wondering if we really have this under control and if it's worth the risk to allow American travelers to come into their countries. So what we're seeing now is a lot of what we call travel bubbles. Countries that are starting to allow, or at least consider allowing, international travel again, but only to a select few countries, maybe neighbor countries, or just countries that have handled this outbreak really well, gotten it under wraps, and made sure that the confirmed case counts are going low, if not, suspended entirely. So, for example, Australia and New Zealand have basically locked down all international travel indefinitely, but they're considering allowing travelers to move in between those two countries as part of their own little travel bubble. This is going to become really common, and I think, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, we're going to see American travelers kind of.
Yeah, American travelers excluded. So again, I'm Jared Komrowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and I have Kyle Potter, our editor-in-chief, with us. We're having a few technical difficulties, but we'll just keep going, guys. So yeah, what we're seeing is, it's very surprising because right away your mind kind of goes to, well, when can us, as Americans travel abroad? And it takes a little bit more thinking. It's not just when can we fly out of the US, but when will foreign countries accept us? And that's what Kyle was talking about. And that's kind of the big thing right now is, yeah, we might be able to fly out of the US to where we want, but they might not accept us. And that's, of course, going to be on a country by country basis going forward. And there's just so many country specific rules, that really haven't rolled out yet. Kyle touched on, how Iceland is the big one that's been in the news as far as, they're considering, opening up in June, and then they would do COVID tests for every single person on arrival. They don't necessarily have the testing capabilities yet or the tests, but they're trying to roll this out. So that's going to be the big thing, will some of these countries be able to open? Do they have the testing capabilities? And I think what you're going to see with Iceland, it's a very small, nimble country that can quickly, implement a lot of stuff. So I would anticipate, Iceland being one of the first countries that will kind of open up, have some kind of a plan. And you can expect to see more information on that at thriftytraveler.com. We also have a great resource that everyone has been a big fan of at thriftytraveler.com/countries, where we have a country by country listing of when the various international destinations are going to be opening up. And I think we've hit on most of the big tourist destinations, worldwide. And we'll be updating that every single day as all this news continues to come out. All right, Kyle. Why don't you give us a little bit more kind of the good news on the domestic front? Because a lot of people probably heard in the news in the last day or two about, Disney opening up in July. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that and, Hawaii? What's Hawaii is like kind of the one that still has some kind of restrictions on travel as far as US states are concerned.
Yeah. Let's start with Hawaii. A little bit of good news there. Hawaii's lieutenant governor said, I believe yesterday, that they are hoping to open back up for tourists starting in July 1st. That comes with a big caveat that right now it's not clear if us travelers here, we're based in Minnesota, anyone through it's not clear if that makes, again, a lot of the United States has been hit very hard by coronavirus, and Hawaii really shut down to all mainland travelers as well as, countries across the globe and said, we don't want you coming here. If you do come here, you are going to be subjected to a 14-day quarantine, and you'll be hit with some pretty heavy fines if you violate that. So as Hawaii is starting to, eye opening back to travelers, it's unclear right now, again, if us here in Minnesota, throughout the United States, if we'll be welcome. The lieutenant governor specifically said Australia, New Zealand, and Japan might be the first countries where they would welcome travelers back starting as early as July 1st. And then, yeah, as you pointed out, Disney World out in Florida has said that they are planning to reopen relatively soon. I think Magic Kingdom and one other park that I can't recall. It will be a very limited opening. And really what we're seeing with Iceland, with Hawaii, with Florida and Disney World is really baby steps to see if they can start to, kind of crack the door open to tourism and travel again on a very limited basis and wait and see if, if things get worse again. And if they don't, you can keep creaking that door open a little bit more. So, this is all changing very, very fast, day by day. And as Jared pointed out, thriftytraveler.com/countries. Our coworker John put together this amazing guide to almost every single country throughout the globe, and we're constantly adding to it. So if you check it out and you don't see the country that you've been thinking about visiting, be sure to let us know. We'll look into it and make sure we keep that up to date.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kyle. And those of you guys who are just joining us, I'm Jared Komorowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and I have Kyle Potter, our editor-in-chief, and we're discussing, everything to do with, when will we be able, to travel again? And we'd love to hear your questions. What are you concerned about? When do you personally, expect to start traveling? What's your outlook, and what questions do you have for us? So throw those into the comments. We're going to put them up on the screen in a few minutes, and then we're going to answer as many of them as we have time for. And we're definitely looking forward to it. This whole YouTube Live setup is very interesting, the way that we can put comments on screen. So it's great for everyone able to see that, yeah, there are real people that we are answering their comments. So please, by all means, put your questions up on the screen, and we'll get to them in a few minutes. I see quite a few of you are already dropping them in. So Kyle, do you have anything other to add, and before we jump into questions?
Yeah, you talked.
Some more technical difficulties. So yeah, what kind of deals is Thrifty Traveler finding? We are finding deals for travel from August onward. So we don't necessarily recommend, traveling, maybe in the next month. But, we are finding deals from August onward. All of the flight deals that we find are currently cancelable for a refund, cancelable for a voucher in the future. So if you were to book a flight today, you can cancel it for a refund in the future, which makes, planning, travel in these uncertain times just that much easier. One of our YouTube videos, if you go to our YouTube channel here, is booking in uncertain times. What are the most important things? And we always say, only book travel if it's refundable. So is the flight cancelable for the voucher? If you have an Airbnb or a hotel, what's the cancellation policy? Because we just honestly don't know what travel is going to look like this fall and winter. You can already book into April of 2021 as far as flights. So, if you're going to be booking that far out, we need to, as travelers, make sure that everything that we're booking is cancelable, either for a refund or a voucher, because you don't want to book a big safari in Africa, that costs $10,000 or $20,000, and then not have it, the possibility of canceling it for either a voucher or a refund. So that's just such a key concept. And of course, we've got other videos about refunds here in the channel. By Mrs. Thrifty Traveler, and all about, what do we expect prices to do in the next year and onward? There are a lot of great questions. And just to answer the big question is, we expect flight prices to remain low. Any of you guys who are Thrifty Traveler premium subscribers, you're probably well aware of the incredible flight deals that we've seen in March, April, and so far through May. Some of the lowest prices we've ever seen, domestically as well as international. All right, so we're going to segue right into questions. Let's see. All right. So the first question is, do you know about travel between Canada and Mexico? I know you're USA focused, but I appreciate the Canadian content you do sometimes. So Kyle, why don't you talk a little bit about what the rules are specifically for the US and Canada, and then why don't you talk about the rules between US and Mexico? Because I don't know if we can speak directly to the Canadian rules, but I would imagine they probably mirror those rules.
Yeah. So right now, the U.S. and Canadian governments have agreed to extend essential travel until, I believe, June 21st. So right now, they're saying if you don't have a specific reason, meaning tourism does not count, if you just want to travel there to or from, you're not allowed into the country, and vice versa. The same right now is true for the United States and Mexico, I believe. That cross-border ban was also extended. And yeah, I'm actually not familiar right now about how Canada is handling entries from Mexico and vice versa. As Jared alluded to, it may be the same policy. These three neighbor countries tend to kind of act together on these things, but we'll be sure to look into that and get back to you on that, because yeah, we just can't say for sure right now. It's not something we've looked closely at.
All right. Dan asks, I'm traveling to Florida from Minnesota in 2 weeks. What should I expect? So Kyle, why don't you talk a little bit about, what is the experience, flying on, let's say, Delta?
Yeah, Delta has made a very big play to be the safe airline right now. They've committed first and foremost to saying we're going to block middle seats on every single plane. They're the only airline that has said this and actually followed through. American and United have both said that they were going to block middle seats in order to give people more space on the plane, and then they've not exactly honored that promise. So if you're flying Delta, you can expect a little more space. You have to point out that, leaving a middle seat between you and your neighbor, that is not 6 feet nor anywhere close to it. So there is a question about, whether this is actually accomplishing that goal of social distancing and keeping people safe. But Delta is actually honoring that promise. So especially if you're flying Delta, expect a much emptier plane than you were, used to just a few months ago. And then the other thing is do not expect any kind of service that you perhaps expected, again, just a couple of months ago. Drink service is basically gone. Really, the best case scenario is something like getting a little bag with some wipes, some Purell, a water bottle, and a snack. That is really the extent of it. Airlines across the board have really limited their in-flight service to try to minimize those touch points between customers and crew, just to protect everyone's safety. So that's the big thing. And then as you're going through the airport, the TSA has implemented some new measures. They're not doing they've said is, on top, asking that travelers wear
All right, we'll
and
move on.
having their own TSA agents wear masks. They're not touching boarding passes, so you're just going to scan your boarding pass yourself and show it to the agent as well.
All right, let's move on to the next question. Andrew asks, if a flight is canceled and the reservation was made through Priceline, what do you do when both the travel agency and the airline say it's the other one's responsibility to refund? So great question, and so many people have run into this over the last few months. We have a great resource flowchart that Kyle here has created at thriftytraveler.com/refunds. And it'll walk you through exactly what you need to do. We have this game where the airlines are saying, it's not up to us, talk to the third party, online travel agency. And ultimately, if they refuse to refund, you should, and you're owed a refund, you should try to work with the airline directly. But if they still are difficult, filing a complaint through the U.S. Department of Transportation is kind of your last resort, or a chargeback on your credit card or whatever a form of payment that you used. Definitely keep fighting for those refunds. I mean, it's gotten a lot easier to get a refund recently because more pressure has been put on the airlines by the Department of Transportation. So it has gotten easier. If you're really struggling through a phone call, definitely our big tip is to try Twitter direct messages directly to Delta, United, American, whatever your airline is, because that sometimes works a little faster, and you'd be surprised at how quickly you can get a lot of your issues resolved without having to pick up the phone. So definitely worth a shot there. All right, we have another question from Gabriel. She asks, what are your thoughts on destination weddings? We postponed our July wedding in Italy to fall of 2021. So obviously, Italy, fall of 2021. We don't have really any idea of what's going to happen. Of course, we're going to update our country by country spread, or our country by country post at thriftytraveler.com/countries with all the newest information specifically out of Italy. It's really going to depend on so many different factors. Will there be a vaccine by this time in 2021? That's really going to change things. Or are people just going to get more comfortable, traveling internationally? I'd say if you have travel to, fall 2021, you can't even book flights yet. Um, but uh, because flights won't be bookable until this fall for next fall. So you're just gonna have to kind of wait and see. I know so many people have weddings, and it's just we don't know, and you're just gonna have to kind of wait and see how the United States, what do they recommend, and what kind of travelers is Italy gonna allow in. Got one for you, Kyle. Chuck asks, you mentioned that Iceland is planning to test visitors upon arrival. How widely do you think that practice will be implemented?
Well, everyone arriving to Iceland is going to be coming through Keflavik Airport. So I would say, if you're going to Iceland, it will be every single person is going to either be required to present evidence of a negative test from just the last few days, take that test themselves, or quarantine in Iceland for 14 days. And then, I think a lot of countries are going to consider this moving forward as more and more countries talk about opening up to international travel. Portugal is one of the rare ones that hasn't said, or that has said, excuse me, that they won't require a test or proof of a negative test. But for the most part, countries that have talked about this have said they will have some kind of testing or health screening requirement in order to enter. So I would say, for the short term and maybe even long term, this is going to be part of our new normal if we're going to be traveling internationally.
Yeah, well, I guess one can expect that if things go well in Iceland, that this practice is going to expand, probably to a lot of the world, depending on a lot of different factors. There's just so many things that we're going to kind of have an answer to in the next month. So keep an eye on thriftytraveler.com. We have a coronavirus news section at thriftytraveler.com/COVID-19, all one word. And Kyle and the team update this news by the minute all day long, every single day. And there's so much news. And probably one of the easiest ways to get it is just to get on our daily newsletter. And you can sign up for that at thriftytraveler.com. All right. So Tony asks, I'm also in Minneapolis. Seems like it should be safe to go to a destination like Alaska in July or August. So Tony, kind of, what we discussed is, you can fly to almost all of the U.S. states right now, with the exception of Hawaii. You can fly to Alaska. A lot of our team seems to think, going to a place where you're outdoors, where you can safely, do social distancing, seems to be, a destination that a lot of people are going to focus on this summer. And, it really goes back to it's a very much a personal decision. Are you comfortable with flying? There's just so many different things. I'll be honest, our team doesn't yet have any travel plan this summer, but we are considering travel. But we're just going to kind of wait for the experts to and the government officials to kind of weigh in with their recommendations in the next month before we make any, significant plans. So Alaska's open for business. I'm sure it's going to be quite busy, given the fact that you can be outside and be in the mountain air. So yeah, July or August in Alaska sounds pretty amazing to us, and I would expect it to be open. And I know most of the flights to Alaska are back in the air. Would you say that's true, Kyle?
Delta has just recently said it's going to restart the nonstop from Minneapolis up to Anchorage. So starting in July. So yeah, July, August. Unless if things take a turn for the worst by then, I would say yeah, you're in business there.
All right, so we have a few questions related to this, and I'll try my best to answer. Ray, as well as Rebecca, asks, if the airlines finally allow us to travel, but will accept fewer travelers on board to comply with social distancing, will that impact the price of tickets? So before we even go into this, we have a great a YouTube video all about this. All about, what do we see the future of airline pricing? Just went out on Tuesday. It's all about how airline pricing works. It's all about supply and demand. What we are seeing right now with social distancing, for example, Delta is only through the end of June allowing their aircraft to be full up to 60%. So there's going to be, quite a few open middle seats. But I think one of the airline presidents or one of the airline president associations stated, a profitable airline and social distancing are incompatible. Long term, the airlines cannot be profitable and adhere to these social distancing guidelines or leaving middle seats open. We will see flights, and the airlines, they're just going to burn through millions and millions of dollars of cash trying to make people feel safe to get back on an aircraft through these social distancing measures like leaving seats open. But I can't personally foresee that continuing much past this summer. I would imagine by August, as probably more travelers get in the air, people feel more comfortable, they'll start ratcheting back some of those, keeping middle seats open, because the airlines just cannot remain profitable, and the airlines really can't increase prices because the whole supply and demand thing, there's just no demand to fly. Even though the airlines have cut supply back significantly, we've seen flight prices bump up a little bit, but there's still so little demand for people to be flying. So I just can't see a price increase to justify keeping seats open long term. And Kyle, I'd love for you to weigh in on that as well.
Yeah, blocked middle seats, social distancing in the sky, these are absolutely temporary measures just to try to convince people that it's safe to get in a plane. Jared, like you said, through June, maybe through July, this is not going to be a permanent thing. And, I would not worry for a second about flight prices going up because airlines feel like they need to continue putting only 50 to 60% of the plane full. Like Jared said, airlines need those seats in order to make money, to turn a profit, and to give money back to their investors. That is the entire reason that these airlines exist. And so they will continue putting people into middle seats, filling those planes as best they can, just as soon as more people are convinced that it's safe to do so. And, there's no telling when that will happen, but it won't be for too much longer.
All right. Another question. Can we expect airlines to extend the change or cancel for free date into June? And are any airlines allowing, risk-free booking beyond May? So Kyle, if you want to just kind of touch on the airlines that we know have rolled out policies for, essentially the ability to cancel a future flight booked now, for a voucher. And that almost all of the U.S. airlines and many international airlines are currently allowing, bookings through the end of May that are booked through the end of May, onward into the future are cancelable for a voucher. Which airlines are going to be rolling out that kind of very generous cancellation policy into June?
Yes. So just today, Delta announced that they have extended that deadline to the end of June. So if you book a ticket by June 30th now for travel as far out as May 2021, you will be able to cancel it for a voucher or change it without paying the $200+ fee. The only other airline that's extended that deadline so far is American Airlines, and they handled it a little bit differently. They said, we will waive change cancellation fees if you book by June instead of May 31st. But they're only waiving those change fees if your travel occurs before the end of September. So they're starting to get a little bit stingier in terms of just how generous they're willing to be. Delta has just extended it point blank and said, fair game. And so we're kind of waiting to see.
Yeah, so essentially, Kyle, Delta's been a lot more generous than American so far. And I know Kyle and our whole team was discussing yesterday and this morning, now that Delta's rolled out this very generous policy as far as cancellations for a voucher through June, and American has a different policy. It's going to be interesting to see, if American now will change their policy to match Delta's, because we have seen that in the past. And United, correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't made an announcement just yet, Kyle?
No, we haven't seen anything from United nor any of the other big US carriers just yet.
Yeah. So a lot of what we expect is, from month to month, at least for the next, 1 to 2, 3 months, a lot of these policies will get pushed forward, into June and then possibly into July. As far as these risk-free cancellation policies for a voucher are concerned, I would expect, unless something dramatically changes as far as people feeling safe to get in the air, the total number of COVID-19 cases nationwide as well as worldwide, and the economy somehow miraculously improves in the next couple of months, I would expect a lot of these very generous cancellation policies will continue into the future. But you never know. Like American, they started kind of ratcheting back, but then we see Delta, pushing a more liberal policy. So I guess only time will tell. All right, let's get to some more questions. Again, for those of you just joining us, I'm Jared Komrowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and with me, I have our guru for all things travel news, our editor-in-chief, Kyle Potter. And we're answering all of your guys' questions. So ask us anything related to, what does the future of travel look like? We've already covered quite a few different topics, but throw it into the comments section. And if we haven't covered it yet, we'll throw it up on the screen and we'll do our best to answer it. All right. Let's see. Lots of great questions, guys. Really appreciate it. All right. So we have a question. Do you know which countries will quarantine incoming travelers for some time before they are allowed to explore the country? So Kyle, and if you don't know specifically, can you rattle off a few countries that you can think of that currently have a quarantine policy? And can you reference where travelers can find that information if we don't mention the specific country that they're interested in?
Yeah, Hawaii is the big one within the US, 14-day quarantine upon arrival. The UK is implementing this starting early next month. Again, 14-day required quarantine period when you arrive. We have no idea when that might end, but that starts, as I said, at the beginning of next month. And then I would just encourage everyone, considering international travel to go to thriftytraveler.com/countries. Our coworker John put together this amazing country by country guide, kind of breaking down all of the individual restrictions on international travel. So if you have questions about these possible quarantine or health screening policies, check there first for sure.
Yeah, we're going to be updating that every single day. I know I see so many questions about, Christmas in Germany, flights to Hawaii, what do things look like, Peru, South America. I think so many questions. A lot of people have been asking me personally, when are my next trips planned? My wife and I, we're planning to travel to South America due to some of the insane flight deals that we've seen. And those of you guys who are Thrifty Traveler Premium subscribers, you've seen those incredible flight deals. We booked a nonstop flight from LA to Santiago, Chile for $200 nonstop round trip. Which is bonkers. So of course we had to book that, and that is until this fall. I also have a flight with my co-founder, Nick Cerati, who I'm sure you've seen on some of these live events. We are going business class on Aeromexico to Buenos Aires later this year. Again, not till the fall or winter. And we still don't know for sure, if those countries will allow us in. So one of the great things, again, about booking travel right at this moment is those cancellation policies for a refund. And one thing that I'd like to just mention, if you are going to be booking a flight, in the next few months, we always recommend booking a domestic carrier. And when I say that, I mean, if you're going to be flying to, let's say Amsterdam, or you're going to be flying to Santiago, Chile, or wherever, try to book on a US-based airline. Because if you do have to cancel for a voucher, the voucher you receive is the one that you're going to have to fly in the future. So it's going to make it so much easier to fly on a US-based airline like American, Delta, or United, or JetBlue, etc., or Southwest. It's just going to be so much easier to reuse that than maybe like a LATAM voucher or a Lufthansa voucher. Obviously, foreign airlines are wonderful and some of the best airlines in the world, but probably not the airlines that you'd want to have a voucher on. And that's just kind of This is one of the topics that we discussed in one of our YouTube videos for booking travel in uncertain times. And if you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check it out after this live event. There's lots of great information there that can kind of guide you and help you navigate, yeah, these uncertain times. All right, so Laura asks, the free change is a one-time change, correct? We booked a flight, then found a better price. If we were to change, we assume we would not have another opportunity to change. And I'm assuming change means either change the dates or cancel for a voucher. And Kyle, maybe if you want to speak to, when you cancel for a voucher and let's say you were to rebook, can you cancel for a voucher again? Or how does that work?
Generally speaking, it is a one-time change. That's kind of the published rule from each airline. But what I would say is this is a great opportunity to hop on Twitter, direct message the airline with the information about your flight and ask this question about whether, you will be able to change it again down the line. Just because, airlines are more flexible than ever right now. I wouldn't, maybe point out you're trying to rebook the exact same flight cheaper. And of course, if you're only saving $5-10 each, probably not worth rebooking it because that's going to cause some heartburn and hassle. But if you ask if you'll be able to reuse a voucher a second time, it's certainly worth checking into, especially if the savings may be substantial.
Yeah, definitely. And again, you can either do that by calling in or our kind of secret, it's not so much a secret anymore, is using Twitter direct message. Like I always say, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard me say this, I'm a millennial. I'm not going to call or pick up a phone if I don't have to. And if I can send that Twitter direct message and keep working or be on a conference call or something, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to just check back in my Twitter direct messages, see if Delta or American or United is, resolved my issue. And if not, comment back. And you can honestly get almost all of your issues resolved online now via Twitter direct message. And Twitter's free. The price is right. So get on there and definitely try that for your next support issue. I know it's something that we're huge fans of. For those of you guys who are just joining us, I am Jared Komrowski, the founder of Thrifty Traveler, and I've got our editor-in-chief, Kyle, here. And this is really ask us anything about the future of travel. Throw it in the comments, and we'll get to it. We'll put it up on screen. There's so many questions about when different countries, states, are opening. You can find that all at thriftytraveler.com/countries. Sign up for our daily newsletter. And you're going to get all of that up-to-date information directly into your inbox. Kobe asks, and this is a mileage question, Kyle, are American Airlines web special miles refundable for free right now? Kind of what is the policy with American's miles?
Yeah, right now, if you book a flight with American Miles right now, you will get them redeposited for free if you cancel. If the flight that you book occurs before September 30th. So I'm going to tell you right now, you should wait until next week because starting June 1st, that changes. And starting June 1st, any flight that you book with Advantage Miles, including those economy web specials, those are, you can change or cancel them for free and get your miles back, as long as that flight is at least 60 days in advance. So, if you wait until June 1st, you book a flight in September, you decide a few days or even weeks later, that's not going to work, you can cancel that for free and get your miles back, no questions asked. Again, even on those really cheap economy web specials. So definitely wait until next week.
Yeah, as Kyle's talking about, there's all these little nuanced rules. And I will say, just from my experience of looking at all the news that's come out, American isn't necessarily making it easy to understand some of these rules. So, we do have them at thriftytraveler.com. And we're going to be updating, as these, mileage, whether you have United Miles, American Miles, Delta Sky Miles, they all have these different rules. And based on our experience, Delta continues to be the one that makes the rules the easiest. So, if you have Delta Sky Miles, we say use your Delta Sky Miles. Don't even book cash flights, if you can avoid it, because Delta's making it so easy to cancel flights. You don't have to worry about a voucher. You don't have to worry about anything. You could book a flight, and let's say that you were going to Orlando in August, and then you decide not to go. You just send a Twitter direct message or pick up the phone or cancel online, and your Sky Miles will be deposited right back into your account, and the fees, taxes and fees will be refunded directly to your form of payment, your debit or credit card. And it's just making it so easy. Yes, American has some pretty great policies right now, but Delta still continues to be the most uh, easy to work with as far as refunds are concerned. And Sky Miles, that's the ticket right now. And I know my first domestic flight is definitely going to be booked with Sky Miles due to that, because I don't want to deal with a voucher. I don't want to be fighting for a refund. Even though it has gotten easier to get a refund across all the airlines, it's just something I just don't want to deal with. So I'm always gonna, burn through my miles when I can. All right. You guys, if you have any questions, we've got time for a couple more questions. So put them into the comments section. We'll throw them up on screen, and we'll do our very best to answer any questions that you guys have. I know we're seeing a lot more questions about, going to, different countries in South America, going to countries, in Asia or Australia. There's so many different rules, and they're going to be changing literally by the day until these different foreign countries figure out who they're going to let in. So go to thriftytraveler.com/countries, and we have a document with all of the major tourist destinations worldwide and all the different country rules as far as who is restricted in coming in and out of the country, and what are the timelines for that? Because I know a lot of us are thinking about traveling this fall into the winter. I know I am personally, I know Kyle is as well, and trying to stay on top of these rules, because yes, for sure, you can cancel for a voucher, but it's just so much, you can book with so much more confidence when let's say, for instance, my wife and I want to go to Iceland, maybe in August. And if we know that Iceland has a policy, that they're doing COVID testing on arrival and it might cost a fee, and we know for sure that we're gonna be able to go, then we can start, feeling confident planning, maybe some Airbnbs or some hotels or some tours, etc. So that's really what we're going to see in the next 30 to 60 days is all the countries worldwide are more than likely going to have some kind of, they've at least going to have identified some kind of restrictions or no restrictions. And again, you can find that all at thriftytraveler.com/countries. Rebecca asks, can you speak on the refund policy for Alaska Airlines in particular? And Kyle, I'm not sure if you can answer Rebecca's question. I think for the most part, Alaska's policy mirrors the other U.S. airlines, at least through May.
Yeah. So any flight you book with Alaska through the end of the month here, and again, we would expect this to get extended through to the end of June, really any day now, hopefully. But any flight you book for future travel with Alaska Airlines, they will allow you to change it for free, subject to some fare difference to change to a more expensive flight, or you can just cancel that and get a voucher that's good for at least 1 year. So Alaska has been really great. I would say basically on par with Delta, as we've said repeatedly through this, has been really great to customers. And then for refunds, the same U.S. laws apply to Alaska Airlines as every other airline. If the airline cancels your flight, or if they change it significantly, you are due the option of a cash refund. And if Alaska gives you trouble on that, just know that you can file a complaint with the Department of Transportation to try to get that money back if your flight is actually canceled or changed significantly.
And you can find all the information about, Kyle created an amazing flowchart at thriftytraveler.com/refunds, where it can walk you through, whether you should be accepting a voucher or should you be accepting and working towards getting a refund. This is our big thing for the last couple of months, has been knowing your rights, which is just so, so, so important. And I just want to echo one thing. When airlines do well and treat customers well, we tell you guys. We don't get paid by the airlines to say anything, and we always give you the best advice that we have. Alaska Airlines, even before this pandemic, you pick up the phone and you talk to somebody at Alaska Airlines, incredible service every single time that I've called. Even better than Delta, and as I've mentioned several times, Delta has been great with customer service, but Alaska, I feel even better sometimes. And you don't even need status to be treated well with Alaska. So, when you think about booking in the future, think about how, these airlines have treated customers even, before the pandemic, but especially during the pandemic. The ones that have treated customers super well, Alaska, and Delta. And Kyle, maybe you want to talk a little bit very briefly before we come to a close here. What have been some of those DOT cases that have been submitted, at least in the month of April, or was that March?
Yeah, it was March. So we've got a story on the front page of thriftytraveler.com today. In the month of March, there were 71 complaints for refunds filed against Delta. 71 consumers said that they were due a refund and Delta wasn't helping them out. For Alaska Airlines, I think it was 18 in the month of March. And then you go up and up the list. United Airlines was 640. So, I mean, United, it was triple the amount that was filed against. So that's just about, at least in the month of March, which airlines
Yeah,
to hang on.
So, in the month of March, those numbers were obviously very, very low. And once we get those DOT numbers for complaints, into April, and then of course in a few months into May, I think you're going to see them skyrocket. But I would still, based on our experience of what we've heard, expect it to mirror, probably some of those initial complaints, because United has just not done a very good job as far as making it easy for people to get refunds. And again, we're always going to tell you what our experience is, what we're hearing from, you guys, our readers, subscribers, customers. We want you guys to be, booking travel on airlines that treat you well, because that's what we're here for. We're advocating for you guys, the consumers. And that's, what Thrifty Traveler is really all about. We're of course here to help you guys book cheap flights, but we're also looking out for you, because we're customers of these airlines just like you guys are, and we try to pass along as much wisdom as we can. So I just want to close things up here. I thank you so much for all these incredible questions. We do one of these either Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Instagram Lives, every few weeks. So I expect we'll have one on a new topic, as time changes and the focus of travel changes. And we'll try to, have the ability for you guys to reach out to us to answer those tough questions, because we know it's a confusing time, and we try to always focus on answering, the tough questions you guys have. So on behalf of everybody at Thrifty Traveler, I'd just like to thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you down the road. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.